Staff Sergeant Elena Hayes had killed 37 people in her 6-year career, and not one of them ever saw her coming. That was the entire point of being a Guardian sniper. You existed in the shadows, operated from distances measured in kilometers, eliminated threats before they could harm the teams you were protecting. The people you saved never knew your name, never saw your face, never realized their successful missions depended on someone lying motionless in frozen mud or scorching desert, making impossible shots while they did their jobs. Elena preferred it that way. Solitude was her natural state. Isolation was her comfort zone. And anonymity was the price she gladly paid for being the best at what she did. But on this particular morning in the Afghan mountains, everything she knew about Guardian operations was about to change. She'd been tracking a SEAL fire team through the snow-covered terrain for the past 4 days, maintaining position between 800 meters and 2 kilometers from their element, providing invisible overwatch as they conducted reconnaissance on a suspected arms trafficking network operating along the Pakistan border. The temperature had been hovering around -25°C, cold enough to kill unprepared people within hours. But Elena had grown up in Alaska and spent 6 years learning to operate in the world's harshest environments. Cold was just another variable to account for, like wind or distance or the way light refracted through mountain air at dawn. Through her spotting scope, she watched the SEAL team halt in a shallow valley to conduct a map check and communications update. 4 professionals moving with tactical precision. Lieutenant Marcus Reeves leading the element, Senior Chief Garrett Hawthorne providing security, Petty Officers Brett Morrison and Dylan Foster covering their flanks. Good operators who knew their business. That's when Elena spotted the problem. Movement on the ridgeline to the east, maybe 1,500 meters from the SEAL position. She shifted her scope and felt ice form in her stomach that had nothing to do with the temperature. Armed fighters, at least 20 of them, moving with the kind of tactical discipline that suggested professional military training rather than local militants. They were positioning themselves on the high ground with clear overlapping fields of fire into the valley where the SEALs had stopped. This wasn't a random encounter. This was a prepared ambush, and the SEAL team was about to walk directly into it. Elena keyed her radio using the encrypted frequency that connected her to both the SEAL team and the Tactical Operations Center. SEAL 1 Overwatch. You have hostile forces moving to establish ambush positions on the eastern ridgeline, bearing 085 from your position. I count at least 20 personnel with heavy weapons. Recommend immediate displacement. Reeves's voice came back instantly, controlled but sharp. Overwatch, can you confirm hostile intent? We're in a gray area for rules of engagement. Through her scope, Elena watched the hostile force continue their tactical positioning. Machine guns going into place. RPG teams selecting firing to positions. Designated marksmen finding elevated hides. There was no question about their intent. SEAL 1, they're setting up an L-shaped ambush with your position as the kill zone. Heavy machine guns. Multiple RPG teams. At least 3 designated marksmen. This is a planned operation, not a chance encounter. You need to move now. Before Reeves could respond, the first shot cracked across the valley. Elena saw Morrison spin and drop, his leg collapsing under him. Not a kill shot, but enough to immobilize him and pin the team in place. The ambush had been initiated. Then all hell broke loose. Machine gun fire raked the valley from multiple positions. RPGs streaked through the cold air, detonating against rocks and frozen ground. The SEAL team scrambled for whatever cover they could find in terrain that offered precious little protection. Elena assessed the tactical situation in seconds. The hostile force was 1,500 meters from the SEAL position. She was 800 meters from the SEALs, which put her at approximately 2,000 meters from the ambush positions. Extreme range even under ideal conditions. And these conditions were far from ideal. Wind was gusting unpredictably. Temperature was affecting her ballistics, and she was shooting at an upward angle that complicated the mathematics. But math was just math, and Elena had spent 6 years learning to solve these problems. She transitioned from her spotting scope to the Mk13 Mod 7 sniper rifle, the .300 Winchester Magnum that had been her companion through 73 previous operations. The weapon came up naturally, muscle memory, from thousands of repetitions guiding her movements. She acquired the first target, a machine gunner whose sustained fire was keeping the SEAL team pinned. The wind gusted and Elena compensated, adjusting her point of aim by feel as much as calculation. She found her natural respiratory pause, that moment between breaths, where her body was completely still, and began applying pressure to the trigger. Gradual, steady, inevitable. The Mk-13 cracked. Through her scope, Elena watched the hostile machine gunner jerk backward and disappear from his position. First threat eliminated. She worked her bolt and acquired her second target, an RPG gunner preparing to fire at what he thought was a helpless American position. He never completed the shot. Elena's second round caught him center mass, and both he and his weapon tumbled down the rocky slope. SEAL 1 Overwatch is engaging hostile positions at extreme range. I've eliminated their primary machine gun and one RPG team, but you're still taking fire from multiple positions. Can you move? Reeves's voice came back strained. Negative Overwatch. Morrison is down with a leg wound. We're taking sustained fire from at least 3 positions, and we don't have clear routes out of this kill zone. We need... His transmission was cut off by another burst of machine gun fire. Through her scope, Elena could see the SEALs were in serious trouble. Morrison was down and couldn't move without assistance. The rest of the team was pinned behind inadequate cover, burning through ammunition, trying to suppress an enemy force that had all the advantages of position and numbers. Standard Guardian sniper protocols said Elena should maintain her position and continue engaging at distance, providing long-range precision fire while calling for additional support. But the nearest quick reaction force was 45 minutes away by helicopter. Air support was grounded due to weather conditions deteriorating rapidly, and the SEAL team didn't have 45 minutes. They had maybe 10 minutes before the hostile force either overran their position or killed them all with sustained fire. That's when her radio crackled with a transmission on a frequency she hadn't used in months. Guardian Hayes, this is Guardian Actual. I'm 800 meters behind your position, elevation 270 meters. I have eyes on the hostile force and the SEAL element. Elena's breath caught. That voice, she knew that voice. Colonel Mackenzie, sir, you're supposed to be stateside. What are you, long story Guardian? Right now we have 4 Americans about to be overrun by a professional hostile force. I'm seeing tactics that aren't Taliban. These fighters are military trained, probably mercenaries. Colonel William Mackenzie, bull to everyone who'd served with him for more than a week, 62 years old, retired Marine, the man who'd founded the Guardian Sniper program 8 years ago, the man who'd trained Elena personally when she'd qualified for the program 6 years back, the man who'd commanded her father in Iraq 21 years ago. Sir, with respect, what are you doing in Afghanistan? You retired 4 months ago. Bull's voice came back steady, but Elena could hear something underneath it. Fatigue, maybe, or pain. Your father was my responsibility, Elena. You are too. This is my last evaluation before I officially hand over the program. Wanted to see my best student in action one more time. Elena didn't have time to process what that meant. Didn't have time to wonder why Bull would travel to Afghanistan for an evaluation. Didn't have time to question why his voice sounded different, older, more tired than she remembered. Through her scope, she watched the SEAL team's situation deteriorate. Foster was hit in the shoulder, still fighting, but bleeding. Hawthorne was down to his last magazine. Reeves was trying to coordinate a withdrawal that didn't exist because there was nowhere to withdraw to. Guardian Actual, the tactical situation is critical. Standard Overwatch protocols aren't sufficient. That SEAL team is going to die in the next 8 minutes unless someone changes the equation. There was a pause. Then Bull's voice came back, and it carried the weight of 4 decades of combat experience. You're thinking about closing the distance, engaging the hostile force from their flank while they're focused on the SEALs. Yes, sir. That's not Guardian doctrine, Elena. We maintain separation. We engage from distance. We don't get into the fight directly. Elena was already breaking down her hide position with practiced speed, securing the Mk-13 across her back and bringing her M4 carbine into her hands. Colonel, did doctrine save my father? The silence on the radio lasted 3 heartbeats. No, it didn't. Then the doctrine just became irrelevant, sir. I'm moving now. Wait, Bull's voice stopped her. You close the distance, I'll provide overwatch on you. Someone needs to make sure the Guardian has a Guardian. Elena felt something shift in her chest. For 6 years, she'd operated alone. For 6 years, she'd been the invisible protector, the unseen shield. And now the man who'd created that role, the man who'd lost her father, was offering to watch her back. Copy that, Guardian Actual. I'm moving to the hostile position. 800 meters. Give me 7 minutes. I'll be watching every step, Guardian. Your father moved like you know. Fast, precise, unstoppable. Elena began moving through the Afghan terrain with controlled aggression that balanced speed against the very real risk of injury. 800 meters of snow-covered ground, scattered rocks, frozen streams that could break an ankle if you stepped wrong. Under normal circumstances, it would take 20 to 30 minutes to traverse safely. Elena covered it in 6.5 minutes. She used every piece of terrain for concealment, moving through draws and behind ridgelines, always staying in dead ground where the hostile force couldn't observe her approach. The temperature was brutal, -25 and dropping, but adrenaline kept her warm and focused. And through it all, Bull's voice was in her ear. Calm, steady, professional. Guardian 2 fighters at your 11 o'clock 200 meters. They're focused on the valley. Move past them. Copy. Machine gun nest at your 1 o'clock 400 meters. 3 personnel. That's going to be your first target when you engage. Understood. Elena. Bull's voice shifted, became something more personal. Your father would be so proud of who you became. Elena didn't respond. Couldn't respond. Because if she opened her mouth right now, 6 years of professional detachment might crack. And she couldn't afford that. Not with 4 Americans depending on her. At 300 meters from the nearest hostile position, she could see the full scope of the ambush. The enemy fighters had established 3 primary firing positions in a rough L shape around the valley, with additional fighters providing security and ammunition resupply. Professional setup, executed with tactical competence that suggested extensive military training. But they'd made one critical mistake. All their security and attention was focused on the valley where the SEALs were pinned. No one was watching their rear approaches. Because who would be crazy enough to attack a 20-man force from behind in the middle of the Afghan mountains in winter, Elena Hayes would? And she was about to teach them why that oversight was fatal. She came up on their positions from the northwest, the direction they weren't expecting threats. Her first targets were 2 fighters providing rear security. Their job was to prevent exactly what Elena was about to do. But they were cold, tired, and focused more on staying warm than maintaining proper vigilance. Both went down to suppressed fire before they even realized someone was behind them. Elena moved past their bodies, already acquiring her next target. The machine gun position Bull had identified. 20 meters ahead. 3 fighters working the weapon while keeping the SEAL team pinned. She approached to within 15 meters before engaging. Dropped all 3 with controlled pairs. 2-round center mass. Confirm the hit. Transition to next target. The machine gun fell silent. Now the hostile force knew something was wrong, but they didn't understand what. Confusion rippled through their positions as fighters tried to figure out why their supporting fire had stopped. Several started moving toward the silenced machine gun position. Elena made them pay for that decision. She engaged from a covered position behind rocks, her M4 finding targets with mechanical precision. 4 more fighters down before the rest realized they were being attacked from behind. The coordinated ambush was fragmenting into chaos as the enemy force tried to deal with a threat they hadn't anticipated. But Elena was now exposed and taking a return fire. Rounds cracked past her head and sparked off rocks, forcing her to seek better cover. That's when Bull's voice cut through the radio, urgent but controlled. Guardian, break left and move 30 meters. I'm engaging the fighters, trying to flank you. Elena moved without hesitation. 3 seconds later, she heard the distinctive crack of Bull's rifle. Through the chaos, she saw 2 fighters who'd been maneuvering on her position drop simultaneously. Threats neutralized, Bull said. Keep moving. You've got them confused, but they're starting to coordinate. Elena repositioned, using smoke and terrain to move before concentrated fire could find her. She worked methodically through the remaining fighters. An RPG gunner trying to get into position. 2 riflemen attempting to flank the SEAL team. Another machine gunner setting up in a new location. Each engagement was quick and decisive. Identify the threat. Engage with controlled fire. Confirm the hit. Move before return fire could locate her position. And through it all, Bull was there, calling out threats, engaging targets that tried to flank Elena, providing the overwatch that she'd provided for so many others over the past 6 years. Guardian, you have enemy movement at your 3 o'clock 200 meters. Looks like their commander trying to rally the remaining forces. Elena shifted her position and acquired the target through her optic. A tall man in tactical gear, older than the other fighters, moving with the kind of confidence that came from extensive combat experience. He was shouting orders, trying to organize a counterattack. She centered her reticle on his chest and began applying pressure to the trigger. Then Bull's voice came through the radio, and something in it made Elena's finger freeze. Elena, hold fire. I need to see his face. Guardian Actual, he's organizing their defense. He's a priority target. I know. Just zoom your optic. Look at how he moves. Elena adjusted her magnification, studying the enemy commander. There was something distinctive about his movement pattern, a slight limp in his left leg, the way he held his rifle, the aggressive hand gestures as he directed his fighters. Bull's voice came back, and Elena had never heard him sound like this before. Shaken, almost haunted. That's Viktor Rostov, former Spetsnaz. I know that walk. I know that stance. I've seen it in my nightmares for 26 years. Sir, who? Chechnya, 1999. I had a force recon team, 8 Marines doing deep reconnaissance in the mountains. Rostov commanded a Spetsnaz unit that ambushed us. Bull's voice was tight now, controlled but barely. He killed all 8 of my Marines. I was the only one who made it out. Spent 14 years thinking he died in that war. Apparently, I was wrong. Elena watched Rostov through her scope. He was maybe 48 years old now, still moving with tactical competence, still dangerous. Guardian Actual, recommend I take the shot. He's a viable threat to the SEAL team. Negative. Not yet. Bull paused. He's not here for the SEALs, Elena. Look at his positioning. He's not focused on the valley anymore. He's scanning the ridgelines. He's looking for something. Elena studied Rostov's behavior more carefully. Bull was right. The Russian wasn't directing his remaining fighters toward the SEAL position. He was positioning them defensively, scanning the high ground with binoculars. Then Rostov raised a radio to his mouth. His voice came through on an open frequency, speaking in accented but clear English. Mackenzie, I know you're out there. I've been tracking you for 3 months. I know about your Guardian program. I know you train snipers to protect American special operations teams. He paused, still scanning the ridgelines. And I know you're here right now, watching. Bull's voice came through Elena's earpiece, steady but cold. 26 years. He's been hunting me for 26 years. Rostov continued speaking into his radio. The SEAL team was bait, Mackenzie. Just bait to draw you out. I don't care about them. I want you. The man who killed my brother in Chechnya. The man who destroyed my unit and walked away. Elena's mind was racing. This entire ambush, the professional tactics, the positioning, it wasn't about the SEALs at all. It was about getting Bull to reveal himself. Guardian Actual, we need to extract. If he knows you're here, he knows we're both here, Elena. He's been monitoring our radio frequencies. That's why he used open channel. He wanted us to hear him. Rostov lowered his radio and smiled, still scanning the mountains. I know you trained the Guardian who's been killing my men from their flank. Very good tactics. Very aggressive. You always did train your people well, Mackenzie. His smile widened. Is it the woman that's one of whose father you got killed in Iraq? Does she know you were his commanding officer? Does she know you ordered him into the ambush that killed him? Elena felt ice water dump into her veins. Sir, what is he? Elena, listen to me. Bull's voice was urgent now. Your father was under my command in Fallujah. I sent his unit to investigate a suspected weapons cache. It was supposed to be a routine patrol, but the intelligence was wrong. It was a trap. A sniper killed him and 3 other Marines before they could withdraw. 21 years. 21 years she'd carried the grief of her father's death. 21 years she'd never known the full story of how he died. You knew, Elena said quietly, this whole time. You knew exactly how my father died. Yes. And you never told me. No, because I didn't want you to carry what I've been carrying, the guilt, the knowledge that I made the call that killed good men. Bull's voice cracked slightly. When you qualified for sniper school, when you applied for the Guardian program, I wanted to turn you away. Thought it would be too painful seeing Thomas Hayes in your face every single day. But you didn't turn me away. No, because you were too good. Because you had the talent and the dedication and the heart. Because turning you away wouldn't bring your father back. He paused. And because I thought maybe if I trained you right, if I made you the best guardian sniper in the program, maybe I could balance the scales somehow. Maybe I could protect you the way I failed to protect him. Elena looked through her scope at Rostov still scanning the mountains. Then she looked at the SEAL team in the valley below, still pinned down, still taking intermittent fire. Her father had died in an ambush 21 years ago. Bull had spent 26 years haunted by the men he'd lost in Chechnya. And now this Russian mercenary was using all of that history, all of that pain to force them into a trap. Elena made her decision. Guardian Actual, I'm not extracting. Those SEALs are going to die if we withdraw now. Morrison needs immediate medical attention. Foster is wounded. They can't move on their own. Elena. And I'm not letting Rostov kill you, sir. You've spent 26 years carrying the weight of 8 Marines, my father's death. Every Guardian you have trained. You're not dying on some Afghan mountain because a Russian mercenary wants revenge. She could hear Bull breathing over the radio, ragged, tired, something else underneath it that she couldn't quite identify. There's something you need to know, Elena. Something I came here to tell you in person, but I guess now is as good a time as any. Sir, I have pancreatic cancer, stage 4. They gave me 6 months, maybe 8 with treatment. That was 3 months ago. Elena's world tilted. This wasn't just an evaluation, Guardian. This was supposed to be my last mission. My last time in the field before I hand the program over to someone else. Before I spend whatever time I have left in hospitals, in treatment centers. Who else knows? Just my doctors. And now you. Bull's voice steadied. I came here because I wanted to see you work one more time. Wanted to make sure the program would be in good hands. Wanted to know that everything I built, everything I sacrificed for would continue after I'm gone. Elena looked at Morrison in the valley below, bleeding out slowly, at Foster's shoulder wound bleeding through his gear, at Reeves and Hawthorne almost out of ammunition fighting against odds that kept getting worse. Then she looked at the hostile force, Rostov and his remaining fighters. Maybe 14 men left after her flanking attack. Enough to kill the SEAL team. Enough to hunt down Bull if he revealed his position. Guardian Actual, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to continue engaging the hostile force from their flank. You're going to provide precision fire from distance. We're going to eliminate Rostov and his men. We're going to save that SEAL team. And then you're going to survive long enough to hand over the Guardian program properly. In a ceremony with full honors. The way it should be done. Elena, that's an order, Colonel, from your best student to her teacher. You taught me to protect people. Today, I'm protecting you. Where there was a long pause, then Bull's voice came back and Elena could hear the smile in it. Your father would have said the exact same thing, same tone, same stubborn determination. Another pause. All right, Guardian, let's finish this. Together. Elena settled into her firing position M4, ready scanning for targets. Through her scope, she could see Rostov still searching the mountains for Bull's position. Guardian Actual, I have 16 fighters remaining in visual range. Rostov is center mass of their formation. Recommend we eliminate outer security first, work our way toward command element. Negative, Guardian. Rostov is mine. He's been mine for 26 years. You handle his fighters, I'll handle him. Elena understood. Some debts were personal. Copy that, Guardian Actual. On your mark. She could hear Bull settling into position, could imagine him behind his rifle, the same M40A3 he'd carried for 30 years, the same weapon he'd used in Chechnya when Rostov killed his team. Bull's voice came through one more time, steady and calm. Elena, whatever happens in the next few minutes, I need you to know something. Training you, watching you become the Guardian you are, that's been the proudest accomplishment of my life. More than any mission, more than any rank or medal. You took all the pain, all the loss, and you turned it into something that saves lives. That's what your father would have wanted. Thank you, sir, for everything. Don't thank me yet. We've still got work to do. Elena centered her reticle on the nearest hostile fighter. Guardian actual on your shot. Stand by, Guardian. Through the scope, Elena watched Rostov lower his binoculars, watched him turn toward one of his fighters and say something. Then Bull's rifle cracked across the mountains, and everything changed. Bull's shot echoed across the Afghan mountains like thunder, and through her scope, Elena watched the fighter standing next to Rostov jerk backward and collapse. Not Rostov himself, the man beside him. The Russian commander didn't flinch, didn't seek cover immediately. Instead, he turned slowly toward the direction of Bull's shot, and even from 800 meters away, Elena could see him smile. There you are, old friend, Rostov said into his radio, his voice carrying across the open frequency. Still shooting like a Marine. Precise, controlled, predictable. Bull's voice came through Elena's earpiece, calm and professional. Guardian engage at will, outer ring first, drive them towards center mass. Elena didn't hesitate. Her M4 barked 3 times and a fighter on the eastern edge of Rostov's formation dropped. She transitioned smoothly to the next target, a machine gunner trying to reposition toward Bull's shooting location. 2 rounds center mass. He fell across his weapon. The Russian formation was already reacting, fighters seeking cover and trying to locate the new threat. But Elena was moving using the terrain exactly the way Bull had taught her 6 years ago. Fire from one position. Move immediately. Never stay static long enough for return fire to find you. She dropped 3 more fighters in rapid succession, working methodically around the perimeter of their defensive position. Each engagement was textbook. Acquire target. Controlled pairs. Confirm hit. Relocate. Bull was engaging simultaneously from his position, his vintage M40A3 reaching out across impossible distances. Elena saw fighters drop at 600 meters, 700 meters. Clean headshots, the kind of precision shooting that only came from decades of experience. But Rostov wasn't panicking, wasn't losing control. He was directing his remaining fighters with calm efficiency, organizing them into a tighter defensive perimeter, positioning them to cover multiple approach vectors. Mackenzie, Rostov called over the radio. You trained her well. She moves like you did in Chechnya, fast, aggressive, disciplined. He paused. But you've gotten old, and I can hear it in your shooting. Slower rate of fire, longer pauses between shots. How old are you? 65. Bull didn't respond. His rifle cracked again, and another Russian fighter went down. And you're sick, Rostov continued. I've been tracking you for 3 months, Mackenzie. I know about the hospitals, the specialists, the cancer eating you from inside. His voice took on a mocking tone. The great Bull Mackenzie, reduced to dying slowly in hospital beds. Where's the warrior's death in that? Elena moved to a new position and eliminated 2 more fighters who'd been trying to flank toward Bull's location. She keyed her radio. Guardian actual Rostov is trying to provoke you. Don't give him what he wants. I know what he's doing, Guardian. Keep working the perimeter. We've got them down to maybe 10 fighters. Keep the pressure on. But Elena could hear something in Bull's voice now. Strain, fatigue. His rate of fire was slowing just like Rostov had said. The pauses between shots were getting longer. Through her scope, she watched Rostov issue orders to his remaining men. They were consolidating their position, forming a tight defensive circle with overlapping fields of fire. Professional, disciplined, exactly what she would do in their situation. Guardian, I'm seeing them dig in. They're going defensive, waiting for us to make a mistake. Copy that. We need to change their calculus, make them react instead of plan. Elena understood what Bull was suggesting. They needed to force Rostov's hand, make him commit his fighters to offensive action where they'd be vulnerable. She looked down at the valley where the SEAL team was positioned. Morrison was still down bleeding. Foster was propped against a rock shoulder wound, clearly causing him pain. Reeves and Hawthorne were still fighting, but their fire was sporadic now. Running low on ammunition, the SEAL team couldn't stay pinned much longer. Guardian actual, I'm going to move on the SEAL position. Provide them immediate medical support and ammunition resupply. That'll force Rostov to either engage or withdraw. Negative, Guardian. That exposes you to fire from multiple angles. Too dangerous. It's the play, Colonel. Rostov wants you. He's using the SEALs as bait. If I relieve pressure on the SEAL team, he'll have to commit his forces or lose his leverage. There was a pause. Elena could almost hear Bull running through the tactical mathematics, calculating angles and risks and probabilities. All right, Guardian, but I'm going to reposition closer, 300 meters. I can provide better cover fire from there. Sir, that puts you in range of their small arms fire. I know, but you're about to walk into their kill zone. Someone needs to make sure you walk back out. Elena checked her ammunition. 4 magazines left for the M4. Her MK-13 rifle still strapped across her back with a full combat load. Medical supplies in her pack, enough to stabilize Morrison if his wound wasn't too severe. She began moving toward the valley using every piece of terrain for concealment. Rostov's fighters saw her almost immediately and opened fire, but she was already in motion, never presenting a static target. Bull's rifle cracked steadily from his new position, suppressing the fighters trying to engage Elena. She could hear rounds impacting near the Russian positions, forcing them to keep their heads down. The SEAL team saw her coming, and Reeves actually did a double take, clearly not expecting to see anyone approaching from the enemy's rear position. Elena slid into cover next to Morrison, already pulling out her trauma kit. "Who the hell are you?" Reeves demanded, still scanning for threats. "Guardian Sniper. I've been providing overwatch on your operation for the past 4 days. Now hold security while I treat your wounded." She cut away Morrison's pant leg and assessed the wound. Through and through, missed the femoral artery, but caused significant muscle damage and bleeding. Survivable with proper treatment. "This is going to hurt," she told Morrison, already applying hemostatic gauze to both entry and exit wounds. "But you're going to be fine." Morrison gritted his teeth as she worked, sweat beading on his face despite the cold. Elena moved with practiced efficiency, packing the wounds, applying pressure, bandages, starting an IV line for fluid replacement. Hawthorne moved closer, covering their position, while watching Elena work. "Ma'am, I've worked with sniper overwatch elements from every service branch. What you just did, flanking a superior force and then walking through their fire to reach us, that's not normal sniper doctrine." "Today's not a normal day, Chief." She finished stabilizing Morrison and turned to Foster, examining his shoulder wound. Clean through the muscle-missed bone and major vessels. She applied field dressings and gave him pain medication. "You'll need surgery eventually, but you're stable for now." Reeves was still scanning the surrounding terrain, clearly trying to understand the tactical situation. "Overwatch, who's providing covering fire? We're hearing precision shots from multiple angles, but we can't identify friendly positions." "That's Guardian Actual, Program Commander. He's at your 10 o'clock, 300 meters elevation 220. There's 2 of you, 2 Guardian snipers on this operation." "Complicated story, Lieutenant. Right now we need to talk about getting you out of this valley." Before Reeves could respond, Rostov's voice came over the open radio frequency again. "Very touching, Mackenzie. Sending your student to play hero, to save the Americans. Very noble." His tone darkened. "But you're not in position anymore, are you? I heard you move. Closer, 300 meters from my position. Close enough that I can send my men to kill you." Through her scope, Elena saw Rostov gesture to 6 of his remaining fighters. They began moving tactically toward Bull's position, using cover and concealment, advancing in coordinated bounds. "Guardian Actual, you have 6 hostiles moving on your position from the south. They're going to flank you in less than 2 minutes. I see them, Guardian, but if I displace now, I can't provide cover fire for you." Elena understood the trap. Rostov had forced them into an impossible choice. Bull could stay in position and get overrun, or he could move and leave Elena exposed with the SEAL team. "Guardian Actual, displaced now. I'll handle security here." "Negative, I'm not leaving you exposed." "Colonel, that's 6 trained fighters against 1 man with a bolt-action rifle. You can't hold that position." "Watch me." Bull's rifle began firing in controlled, rapid succession. Elena watched through her scope as the 6 advancing fighters started taking casualties. 1 down, 2 down, 3 down. But they were still advancing using fire and movement tactics, suppressing Bull's position while others bounded forward. And Bull's rate of fire was definitely slowing now. The pauses between shots getting longer. Elena made her decision. She grabbed her MK-13 rifle and moved 20 meters to higher ground, establishing a firing position with clear sight lines to Bull's location and the advancing fighters. "Guardian Actual, I have eyes on your position, engaging the hostile force now." She transitioned smoothly into precision shooting mode. The Mk-13 was designed for exactly this kind of engagement. Long range, precise, devastating. Her first shot dropped the lead fighter at 400 meters. The second hit a fighter trying to flank Bull from the west. The third caught a machine gunner setting up to suppress Bull's position. Between Elena's precision fire and Bull's steady shooting, the Russian assault faltered. The remaining three fighters broke contact and withdrew back toward Rostov's position. But Elena heard something in her earpiece that made her blood run cold. Bull was breathing hard, ragged, gasping slightly between shots. "Guardian, actual, what's your status?" "I'm good, Guardian, just getting old. Can't move like I used to." But he didn't sound good. He sounded exhausted, strained. Something was wrong. Rostov's voice came over the radio, and now he sounded genuinely amused. "There it is, Mackenzie. I can hear it. You're dying right now, aren't you? Not from my bullets, from the cancer eating you alive. How much longer do you have? Weeks, days?" "Long enough to kill you, Rostov." Brave words from a dying man. The Russian paused. "But I'm curious. Does your student know why I'm really here? Does she know the full story of Chechnya?" Elena keyed her radio. "Guardian." "Actual, what is he talking about?" Bull's voice came back, and now Elena could hear the pain in it. "Chechnya, 1999. My force recon team was deep in hostile territory. We'd been tracking a Spetsnaz unit for 3 weeks. High-value target, Russian colonel named Dmitry Rostov, Victor's older brother." He paused to breathe. "We had authorization to eliminate him. I took the shot, killed him at 800 meters. Clean kill. Mission accomplished. And then Victor's unit ambushed your team," Elena said quietly. 3 days later, they'd been hunting us the whole time. We didn't know Dmitry had a younger brother in the same area. Didn't know Victor would spend the next 26 years tracking everyone who was involved in that mission." Bull's breathing was getting more labored. "I was the last one left alive. Everyone else from that operation either died in Chechnya or in the years after. Car accidents, training incidents, one apparent suicide. Victor's been systematically eliminating everyone connected to his brother's death." Elena looked through her scope at Rostov. The Russian was watching Bull's position with binoculars, a satisfied smile on his face. "So this was always personal," Elena said. "This was never about the SEALs or the Guardian program. This was about finishing what you started in Chechnya." "Yes, and he's right about one thing. I am dying. The cancer is stage 4. Inoperable. I've got maybe 3 months left." Bull paused. "I came on this mission because I wanted to be doing something that mattered. Protecting people, saving lives, not wasting away in a hospital bed." Reeves had been listening to the radio traffic. He moved closer to Elena. "Ma'am, if Guardian Actual is compromised, we need to call for immediate extraction. Get everyone out before the situation deteriorates further." Elena looked at Morrison, stabilized but unable to walk. At Foster with his shoulder wound. At the Russian fighters still holding defensive positions. At the sky where dark clouds were rolling in with disturbing speed. "Lieutenant, check your weather forecast. What's coming?" Reeves pulled up his tactical computer and his face went pale. "Major blizzard system. Moving in faster than predicted. We've got maybe 40 minutes before visibility goes to 0 and temperature drops to -30. Helicopter extraction will be impossible." "How long until the storm clears?" 6 to 8 hours minimum." Elena did the math. Morrison needed medical evacuation within a few hours or he'd lose the leg. Foster's shoulder wound was stable but needed surgery. Bull was somewhere between compromised and in critical. His cancer clearly affecting his combat effectiveness. And they were about to be trapped in a blizzard with a hostile force that wanted them dead. She keyed her radio. "Guardian Actual, we have a major weather system moving in. 40 minutes until conditions make movement impossible. What's the nearest defensible position where we can wait out the storm?" There was a long pause. Too long. Then Bull's voice came back weaker than before. "Cave system, 2 kilometers north of the SEAL position. I identified it during reconnaissance 3 days ago. Deep enough to provide shelter. Defensible entrance. Good thermal properties." "Can Morrison make it 2 kilometers?" "Not on his own. You'll need to rotate carrying him. But yes, if you move immediately." Elena looked at the Russian position. Rostov and maybe 7 fighters remaining. Still combat effective. Still dangerous. What about Rostov? He's not going to let us just walk away. He won't have a choice. Once the storm hits, visibility will be less than 20 meters. Even his training won't help in whiteout conditions. Bull coughed a wet, painful sound. But Elena, there's something you need to understand about that cave system. Sir, I used those caves before, not 3 days ago, 26 years ago. His voice was strained. After Rostov's ambush in Chechnya, when I was the only survivor, I crawled to those caves and hid there for 2 days while they hunted me. Those mountains are the same. Afghanistan, Chechnya. The geology is similar. The caves are similar. Everything is similar. Elena understood. Bull wasn't just suggesting tactical shelter. He was leading them to the place where his nightmare had started 26 years ago. Are you sure about this, Colonel? No, but it's the only option we have. He paused. I survived those caves once, alone, wounded, hunted. This time I'm not alone. This time I'm with the best guardian I ever trained. This time we're going to survive together. Elena turned to Reeves. Lieutenant, prepare your team for movement. 2 kilometers north. I'll take point since I know the terrain. Chief Hawthorne and I will rotate carrying Morrison. Foster can move on his own with support. You maintain rear security. What about Guardian Actual? He's going to provide overwatch during our movement and then meet us at the cave system. Reeves studied her face for a moment, clearly seeing something in her expression. Ma'am, is your commander going to make it to those caves? Elena thought about Bull's labored breathing, the fatigue in his voice, the way his rate of fire had slowed throughout the engagement. A 62-year-old man with stage 4 cancer who just fought a sustained firefight at high altitude in sub-zero temperatures. He's going to make it, Lieutenant, because I'm not losing anyone else today. She keyed her radio one more time. Guardian Actual, we're moving to the cave system now. I need you to displace and parallel our movement. Provide overwatch, but conserve your strength. Once we reach the caves, you join us and we wait out the storm together. Elena, Rostov is going to follow you. He's not going to let this go. I know, but in the storm his numbers advantage disappears, and if he follows us into those caves, we'll have the defensive advantage. She paused. Sir, I need you to trust me, the way I've always trusted you. There was a long silence. Then Bull's voice came back, and Elena could hear something in it that might have been pride. Copy that, Guardian. I'm displacing now. I'll maintain overwatch on your movement and then join you at the cave system. He paused. Your father used to make me trust him too. Used to tell me to stop overthinking and just let him do his job. You're exactly like him. Then you know I'm going to get everyone out alive, sir. Just like he would have. Elena helped Reeves get Morrison up and positioned him so Hawthorne could carry him in a fireman's carry. Foster was mobile with support from Dylan. Elena took point position with her M4 ready. The wind was already picking up temperature, dropping noticeably. The storm was coming faster than the forecast predicted. They began moving north, and Elena could see the first snowflakes starting to fall. Within minutes, it would be a full blizzard. Behind them, through the deteriorating visibility, she could hear Rostov's voice one more time over the radio. Run, Mackenzie. Hide in your caves like you did 26 years ago. I found you then. I'll find you now. And this time there's no escape. This time I finish what I started in Chechnya. This time everyone dies. Elena kept moving, navigating by GPS and terrain memory through conditions that were rapidly becoming impossible. The wind was screaming now, driving snow horizontally across the mountains. Visibility was already down to 50 meters and dropping fast. Hawthorne was struggling with Morrison's weight, and Elena moved to help, taking some of the load. Foster was keeping pace, but clearly in pain, his wounded shoulder making every step difficult. Reeves was maintaining rear security, constantly scanning for pursuit. 20 minutes into the movement, the storm hit full force. Visibility dropped to less than 20 meters. The wind was gusting hard enough to actually push them sideways. Temperature plummeted to -30°C, cold enough to kill in minutes without proper gear. Elena's GPS showed they were still 800 meters from the cave system. 800 meters that felt like 8 kilometers in these conditions. Guardian Actual, what's your status? She called over the radio. Static. Guardian Actual, do you copy? More static. Then Bull's voice came through broken and faint. Guardian, I'm 300 meters south of your position. A storm can barely... The transmission cut out. Elena made a decision. She turned to Reeves. Lieutenant, the caves are 600 meters north, bearing 345. Take your team there now. I'm going back for Guardian Actual. Ma'am, you can't navigate in this storm. You'll get lost and die of exposure. Guardian Actual is 300 meters behind us and he's in trouble. I'm not leaving him. Hawthorne spoke up, his voice strained from carrying Morrison. Ma'am, with respect, we need you to guide us to the caves. None of us know this terrain. If you go back for your commander, we might not make it to shelter. Elena looked at the GPS, then at the SEAL team, then back toward where Bull should be. Impossible choice. Save the team in front of her, or save the man who'd trained her, who'd carried the weight of her father's death for 21 years, who was dying of cancer and fighting one last battle. She pulled out her GPS unit and thrust it into Reeves's hands. Bearing 345, 600 meters. The caves have a narrow entrance, easy to miss in the storm. Look for a rock formation shaped like a broken tooth. The entrance is 10 meters to the left of that formation. She grabbed his arm. Lieutenant, you get your team to that shelter. You keep them alive. I'm going back for Bull. How will you find us again? Elena showed him a small infrared beacon from her pack. I'll activate this when I find Guardian Actual. Your night vision will pick it up even in the storm. We'll follow it to your position. She didn't wait for further argument. She turned and began moving back through the blizzard, fighting against wind that threatened to knock her down through snow that was already accumulating in deadly drifts. Her radio crackled. Elena, don't. You need to. The team. Shut up and keep talking, Colonel. I'm navigating to your voice. Tell me where you are. 300 meters. South-southeast. I fell. Twisted ankle. Maybe broken. Elena adjusted her course, moving as fast as she dared through white-out conditions. The cold was brutal now, cutting through her gear, making every breath painful. Keep talking, sir. Tell me about Chechnya. Tell me about those caves. Bull's voice came through, weak but steady. Chechnya, 1999. After Rostov killed my team. I was wounded. Gunshot to the leg. Crawled 8 kilometers to those caves. He paused to breathe. Spent 2 days in the dark, listening to them hunt me, hearing their voices outside, thinking every sound was them coming to finish me. Elena pushed forward, using his voice as a beacon. But you survived, Colonel. You made it out. Allied forces found me on the 3rd day, more dead than alive. They said I should have died a dozen times, from the cold, from the wounds, from dehydration. His voice faded. But I didn't die because I had 8 Marines depending on me to tell their story, to make sure their families knew they died as heroes. Elena was close now. She could sense it. The GPS showed she was within 50 meters of his last transmission location. I see you, sir. Hold position. I'm coming to you. Through the storm, she finally spotted him. Bull was down, propped against a rock, his injured leg extended at an awkward angle. His rifle was still in his hands, still watching for threats even though he could barely move. Elena reached him and immediately began assessing. Ankle definitely broken or severely sprained. Hypothermia setting in, lips blue, hands shaking, but still conscious, still fighting. I told you not to come back, he said through chattering teeth. And I told you that you don't get to die on an Afghan mountain. Not today. She pulled out an emergency blanket and wrapped it around him, then prepared a morphine injection for the pain. Elena, I'm slowing you down. Leave me here. Get back to the team. Not a chance, Colonel. You're the one who taught me that Guardians never abandon their people. That lesson works both ways. She administered the morphine, then fashioned a quick splint for his ankle using materials from her pack. Bull watched her work, his eyes showing both pain and something that might have been wonder. Your father did the same thing once. Iraq, 2003. I was wounded in an ambush. Told him to leave me. He refused. Carried me 2 kilometers under fire. Bull's voice was getting weaker. Saved my life. And I repaid him by getting him killed a year later. Elena finished the splint and activated her infrared beacon. You didn't get him killed, sir. He was a Marine. He knew the risks. He chose to serve. Just like you. Just like me. She got Bull up, positioning him so she could support his weight. 6'2", 220 pounds of retired Marine colonel. It was going to be brutal, carrying him 600 meters through a blizzard. But she'd carried heavier loads in training, and she'd never had more reason to make it to the finish line. Guardian Actual, we're moving to the cave system now. Stay conscious. Keep talking to me. They began moving through the storm, and Bull started talking. About Chechnya, about Iraq, about all the Marines he'd lost over 40 years of service, about founding the Guardian program, about training Elena, about her father. Thomas Hayes, best officer I ever commanded, reminded me why I joined the Marines. Duty, honor, sacrifice. He believed in all of it. Bull's voice was fading in and out. When he did, part of me died too. Thought I'd never forgive myself. And then I showed up for Guardian selection, Elena said, pushing through snow that was now waist-deep in some drifts. And there he was, staring back at me. Same eyes, same determination, same stubborn refusal to quit. Bull's head was drooping now, consciousness fading. I knew I had to train you, had to make you the best, had to give Thomas Hayes' daughter the tools to survive what he couldn't. Elena could see the infrared beacon blinking through her night vision now. 400 meters. She adjusted Bull's weight and kept moving. You did that, sir. You made me a guardian. You gave me purpose. You turned my grief into something that saves lives. 300 meters. And now I'm going to save yours, because that's what guardians do. We protect people, even stubborn dying colonels who think they need to sacrifice themselves. 200 meters. The wind was impossibly strong now, and Elena was exhausted, but she could see the rock formation Reeves would have found. The broken tooth, the cave entrance to the left. 100 meters. Bull's eyes opened slightly. Elena, if I don't make it, you tell them. Tell the new Guardians that the program was worth it, that every sacrifice, every loss, it all mattered. You're going to tell them yourself, Colonel. At your retirement ceremony, with full honors. 50 meters. She could see light now, tactical flashlights from inside the cave. The SEAL team had made it. They were safe. Almost there, sir. Stay with me. 20 meters. Hawthorne appeared at the cave entrance, moving out to help Elena with Bull's weight. Together, they got him into the shelter out of the killing wind and cold. Inside, Reeves had established a defensive position and started a small fire using chemical heat tabs. Morrison was lying near the warmth. Foster was getting his shoulder rebandaged. Everyone was alive. Elena lowered Bull carefully near the fire and began treating him for hypothermia. Removing wet clothing, wrapping him in emergency blankets, checking his vitals. His pulse was thready, breathing shallow. But he was alive. Reeves moved beside her. Your commander going to make it. Elena looked at Bull's face. 62 years old. Stage 4 cancer. Broken ankle. Severe hypothermia. Any one of those things could kill him. He survived worse, Lieutenant. Chechnya, Iraq. 40 years of combat. He's not dying in a cave in Afghanistan. Not on my watch. Outside, the storm raged with apocalyptic fury. Inside the cave, 5 Americans huddled around a small fire, wounded, exhausted, but alive. And somewhere out in that storm, Victor Rostov was still hunting. But for the moment, they were safe. For the moment, they could rest. Elena sat beside Bull, monitoring his condition, keeping watch over the man who'd watched over her for 6 years. Stay with me, Colonel, she whispered. This story isn't over yet. The storm screamed outside the cave like something alive and furious, wind howling through the mountain passes with enough force to strip flesh from bone. Inside, the 5 Americans and their guardian huddled around chemical heat sources that provided barely enough warmth to keep hypothermia at bay. Elena kept watch over Bull through the long hours of darkness. His breathing was shallow but steady. The hypothermia was receding slowly as his core temperature climbed back towards survivable levels. The broken ankle was immobilized and the pain medication was keeping him sedated. But the cancer was still there, eating him from inside, and there was nothing Elena could do about that. Reeves had established a watch rotation. 2 hours on 4 hours rest. Hawthorne had first watch at the cave entrance, night vision, scanning the white chaos beyond for any sign of Rostov's forces. Morrison was sleeping fitfully, his leg wounds stable but painful. Foster sat with his back against the cave wall, cradling his injured shoulder, staring at nothing. Dylan moved to sit beside Elena around the third hour of the storm. "Ma'am, can I ask you something?" Elena checked Bull's pulse again before responding. "Go ahead. You've been doing Guardian operations for 6 years. How many times have you had to do what you did today, break protocol, get directly into the fight?" Elena was quiet for a moment, remembering Syria 3 years ago. The Delta Force team, the one operator she'd been too slow to save. Once before, Syria, 2014, Delta Force element walked into a complex ambush. Standard overwatch wasn't sufficient. I closed distance and engaged. She paused. 37 hostiles eliminated between us. 0 American casualties except one. A Delta sergeant who died because I hesitated for 2 seconds before engaging. "That wasn't your fault. Wasn't it Guardian doctrine says maintain distance, engage from safety? I broke that doctrine and a good man died anyway." She looked at Bull's unconscious face. "The colonel spent 3 months convincing me it wasn't my fault. Told me that sometimes you do everything right and people still die. That's war." Dylan was quiet for a moment. "Is that why you came back for him in the storm? Because you weren't going to lose anyone else?" "I came back for him because he spent 26 years carrying the weight of 8 Marines who died in Chechnya. 21 years carrying the weight of my father's death in Iraq. 6 years training me to be something more than just another sniper." Elena's voice was steady but cold. "He doesn't get to die alone in a blizzard. Not after everything he's survived. Not after everything he's built." Reeves joined the conversation from his position near Morrison. "Ma'am, I need to understand the tactical situation. When this storm breaks, what are we facing? Is Rostov going to press his attack or withdraw?" Elena had been thinking about exactly that question for the past 3 hours. Rostov has spent 26 years hunting the colonel, used significant resources to set up this ambush, lost most of his team in the engagement. He's not going to withdraw now, not when he's this close to his target. So he'll wait out the storm and then assault the cave. Most likely, he's got maybe 5 or 6 fighters left. We've got 5 people, 2 wounded, 1 critical. In a straight fight, his odds are decent. Hawthorne spoke up from the cave entrance. "Then we need to think about defense in depth. This cave system extends back pretty far. I did some preliminary reconnaissance while you were bringing the colonel in. Multiple chambers, some natural choke points. We could fall back to a more defensible position." Elena shook her head. "No, we defend here at the entrance, single point of access, clear fields of fire. We fall back deeper into the cave system, and we lose our ability to observe threats. Rostov could bottle us up and wait us out. We'd run out of supplies long before he ran out of patience." Bull's eyes opened slowly. His voice was weak but lucid. "She's right. Defend at the entrance. Make them pay for every meter." He tried to sit up, and Elena pushed him back down gently. "Colonel, you need to rest. You've got a broken ankle and severe hypothermia. You're in no condition to—" "I'm in perfect condition to tell you about these caves." Bull's eyes were clearing now, the morphine wearing off enough for him to think. 26 years ago, I spent 2 days in caves exactly like this one. Rostov and his men hunted me. I learned how they think, how they move, how they assault a defensive position." Reeves moved closer. "Sir, any intelligence you can provide would be valuable." Bull gestured for water, and Elena helped him drink before he continued. "Rostov is Spetsnaz trained, old school. He'll wait for dawn, use the early morning light for his assault. He'll send a small element to probe your defenses, test your response time, identify your firing positions. Then he'll pull back and hit you with everything he's got from multiple angles." "How do we counter that?" Hawthorne asked. Bull looked at Elena. "You don't counter it. You turn it against him. Let him think he's identified your defensive positions. Then shift them before the main assault. He attacks where you were not where you are. Classic misdirection." Elena understood immediately. It was the same principle Bull had taught her in urban combat training 4 years ago. Never defend where the enemy expects you to defend. We'll need to prepare multiple firing positions, set up visible defenses at the cave entrance to draw his attention, but position our actual shooters in concealed locations with overlapping fields of fire. Exactly. Bull tried to sit up again, and this time Elena helped him, propping him against the cave wall where he could see the entrance. And there's something else. Rostov knows I'm wounded, knows I can barely walk. He'll assume I'm out of the fight. That gives us an advantage. Sir, with respect, you are out of the fight. You've got a broken ankle and stage 4 cancer. You can't. Bull's eyes hardened, and for a moment Elena saw the Marine colonel who'd commanded men in combat for 40 years. I can shoot, I can observe, I can coordinate fires. I'm not dead yet, Guardian, and I'm not letting Rostov walk into this cave without paying a price. The storm raged through the night and into the early morning hours. Elena and the SEAL team prepared their defenses, working by red light flashlights that wouldn't compromise their night vision. They established 3 firing positions with clear sight lines to the cave entrance and the approach terrain, set up what looked like a defensive position at the entrance itself, but was actually just camouflage netting and equipment arranged to suggest personnel. Bull directed the preparations from his position against the cave wall, his tactical mind still sharp despite the pain and exhaustion. He'd produced a small notebook from his pack and was sketching the defensive layout, calling out fields of fire and danger areas with the precision of someone who'd done this 1,000 times before. Around 0500 hours, the storm began to break. The wind died down to merely dangerous rather than apocalyptic. Visibility slowly increased from 20 meters to 50, then to 100. And that's when Elena saw them through her scope. 7 figures moving through the pre-dawn darkness. Tactical spacing, professional movement. Rostov's remaining fighters approaching the cave system. She keyed her radio on the frequency the SEAL team was using. Contact. 7 personnel bearing 180 500 meters and closing. Moving in tactical formation with clear fire team organization. Reeves acknowledged, and the team moved to their prepared positions. Hawthorne took the eastern firing point with Morrison's rifle since Morrison was still too wounded to fight effectively. Dillon took the western point. Reeves positioned himself in the center with clear command and control of both flanks. Elena remained with Bull, her Mk-13 rifle set up with perfect sight lines to the approach terrain. Bull had his M40A3 prop beside him. He couldn't stand, could barely move, but his hands were steady and his eyes were clear. Elena, I need you to do something for me. Sir, if Rostov gets past you, if he makes it into this cave, if it comes down to him and me. Bull's voice was completely calm. You let him through, you let him come to me. This has been between him and me for 26 years. It needs to end that way. Colonel, I'm not going to... That's an order, Guardian, from your commander. Rostov wants me dead. That desire has consumed him for 2.5 decades. Let him have what he wants, but on my terms, in my time, with my weapon in my hands. Elena looked at the old Marine, 62 years old, dying of cancer, broken ankle, still ready to face down the man who killed his team a generation ago. Yes, sir. The Russian fighters reached 300 meters and halted. Through her scope, Elena could see Rostov clearly now. He was scanning the cave entrance with binoculars, studying the defensive positions, calculating angles and approaches. Bull's voice was quiet beside her. He's seeing the decoy position at the entrance. Thinks he's identified our main defensive line. He'll probe it in about 2 minutes with a small element. We let them get close. Then we hit them from the flanks. Show him his intelligence was wrong. Elena watched through her scope as Rostov gestured to 2 of his fighters. They began moving forward in a flanking maneuver, one from the east and one from the west, clearly intending to get angles on the cave entrance. Hawthorne, Dillon, you've got single targets moving to your flanks. Let them get to within 100 meters. Then engage on Bull's command. Both SEALs acknowledged. The Russian fighters moved with professional caution, using cover effectively, constantly scanning for threats. They were good, well-trained, experienced, but they were expecting the threat to come from the cave entrance. They weren't expecting shooters positioned on their flanks with clear sight lines to their approach routes. At 100 meters, Bull's voice cut through the radio. Engage. Hawthorne and Dillon fired simultaneously. Both Russian fighters went down. clean kills. The element of surprise was total. Rostov's reaction was immediate. He pulled his remaining 5 fighters back to 250 meters using a rocky outcropping for cover. Elena could see him gesturing angrily, clearly reassessing the situation. Bull nodded slowly. Good. Now he knows his intelligence was wrong. He's going to have to commit more resources to understand our actual defensive positions. That means more targets, more opportunities. Rostov's voice came over the open radio frequency. Impressive, Mackenzie. You taught your people well, but I've still got 5 fighters and you've got 5 defenders. 2 of whom are wounded, 1 of whom is you broken and dying in the back of that cave. Bull reached for his radio. Victor, I've been dying since the day I was born. We all have. The only question is what we do with the time we're given. I spent mine protecting warriors, training guardians, making sure good people come home to their families. What did you spend yours doing? Hunting one old Marine for 26 years? Seems like a waste. There was silence on the radio. Then Rostov laughed, but it was a cold sound. Your brother died doing his duty in Chechnya. My brother died because you murdered him from 800 meters away. You never gave him a chance to fight back. Never gave him a warrior's death. Just a bullet from a coward hiding in the hills. Your brother was a legitimate military target in a combat zone. I took an authorized shot on an enemy combatant. That's war, Victor. If you can't accept that you never understood what your brother died for, I understand that you need to pay for his death. And today, finally, you will. Rostov gestured to his fighters and they began moving again. But this time they weren't probing. This time they were committing to a full assault. 3 fighters moving straight at the cave entrance while 2 attempted to flank from extreme east and west positions. Bull's voice was calm and analytical. Standard Spetsnaz assault doctrine, fixed with base of fire, flank with maneuver elements. Simple, effective, but predictable. He keyed the radio. All positions engage targets of opportunity. Priority to the flanking elements. Break their maneuver capability. Elena acquired the eastern flanking fighter in her scope. 600 meters, extreme angle, wind still gusting from the storm. She made her calculations adjusted for all variables, found her respiratory pause. The Mk-13 cracked. The Russian fighter went down at 600 meters. 1 shot, 1 kill. Dillon engaged the western flanker at 400 meters with Hawthorne's help. 2 rounds. Target eliminated. Now Rostov's assault was reduced to 3 fighters conducting a frontal assault with no flanking support. Exactly the kind of situation that got people killed. Reeves engaged from the center position, his M4 firing in controlled bursts. 1 Russian fighter went down, then another, and then it was just Rostov charging across the open ground toward the cave entrance, firing his rifle from the hip, screaming his brother's name. Elena centered her reticle on his chest. She had the shot. Clean, clear. Rostov would be dead in 2 seconds. Bull's hand touched her shoulder. Let him come. Sir, he's going to... I know what he's going to do. He's going to come into this cave and try to kill me. That's what he's wanted for 26 years. Let him, Elena lifted her finger from the trigger and watched through her scope as Rostov reached the cave entrance. He paused there, silhouetted against the dawn light, his rifle searching for targets. Then he saw Bull, sitting against the cave wall, broken, wounded, rifle in his lap, waiting. Rostov walked into the cave slowly, rifle raised, finger on the trigger. The SEAL team had their weapons on him, but nobody fired. Bull had given the order. This was his fight now. 26 years, Mackenzie. 26 years I've hunted you, killed everyone else from that mission. And now finally I have you. Bull's voice was steady. You had me a dozen times, Victor. Paris 2009, Bangkok 2013, Berlin 2018. All those convenient accidents and trainings incidents that kept killing people from my Chechnya team. I knew it was you every time. Knew you were working your way toward me. And you did nothing, said nothing, let me kill them. Because I understood. Your brother died. You needed justice or revenge or closure, whatever you want to call it. Bull shifted slightly, his rifle still in his lap, but not pointing at Rostov. But here's what you need to understand. Dmitri died doing his duty. just like my Marines died doing theirs, just like I'm going to die doing mine. That's what warriors do. We accept the risk. We face the enemy. We don't spend decades hunting for revenge against men who were just following orders. Rostov's rifle was shaking slightly now. Rage, grief, 26 years of obsession coming to a head in a cave in Afghanistan. You don't get to tell me what my brother died for. You don't get to justify his murder. I'm not justifying anything. I'm telling you that if you kill me right now, it won't bring Dmitri back. It won't give you peace. It'll just make you a murderer. And everything your brother fought for, everything he believed in, will die with me in this cave. I don't care. I want you dead. Bull nodded slowly. I know. That's why I'm going to give you what you want. But not like this, not execution style, not murder. He gestured to his rifle. Warrior to warrior, the way it should have been done in Chechnya. You and me, both armed, both ready. May the better man win. Rostov stared at Bull for a long moment. Then slowly, deliberately, he lowered his rifle and took 3 steps back. You can barely stand. You're dying of cancer. Your ankle is broken. This isn't a fair fight. Since when do warriors expect fair fights? You ambushed my team in Chechnya. I ambushed yours here. There's no such thing as fair in war. There's just who survives and who doesn't. Elena wanted to intervene, wanted to put a round through Rostov's head and end this. But she'd given Bull her word. This was his fight, his terms, his ending to a story that started 26 years ago in mountains that looked exactly like these. Rostov raised his rifle again slowly. Bull's hands tightened on his M40A3. Neither man moved for 3 heartbeats. The cave was absolutely silent except for the wind outside and Morrison's labored breathing. Then everything happened at once. Rostov's rifle came up fast, finger moving to the trigger. Bull's rifle was already moving, decades of muscle memory, compensating for age and injury and cancer. The M40A3 cracked once and Rostov jerked backward, rifle falling from his hands. The Russian hit the cave floor hard and didn't move. Bull's single shot had caught him center mass dead before he completed his trigger pull. Bull lowered his rifle slowly and slumped back against the cave wall exhausted. Elena moved to check Rostov's body. Confirmed the kill. Then she knelt beside Bull. That shot was impossible. Broken ankle, hypothermia, cancer. You shouldn't have been able to. I've been taking that shot in my head for 26 years. Every night, every nightmare. Rostov standing over me. Me with my rifle. One chance to survive. Bull's eyes were distant. I've practiced that shot 10,000 times. Today, I finally took it for real. Reeves approached cautiously, scanning for any additional threats. Sir, all hostile forces are eliminated. The immediate tactical situation is secure. We need to call for medical evacuation as soon as weather permits. Bull nodded slowly. How long until we can get helicopters in here? Storm is breaking fast. Maybe 2 hours for the valley to clear enough for safe flight operations. 2 hours. Bull looked like he had maybe 1 hour of strength left in him. The adrenaline of the confrontation with Rostov was fading, and the reality of his condition was settling back in. Broken ankle, stage 4 cancer, severe hypothermia, exhaustion beyond anything Elena had ever seen in him. She began treating him again, checking his vitals, adjusting his splint, making sure his core temperature stayed stable. Bull tolerated her ministrations with the patience of a man who knew he was dying and had made his peace with it. Elena, I need you to listen to me. Really listen, because I might not get another chance to say this. Sir, save your strength. The helicopters will be here soon, and the helicopters will take me to a hospital in Bagram, then Germany, then Walter Reed. And then I'll spend whatever time I have left in treatment centers and hospice care. His voice was steady but infinitely tired. This was my last mission, my last time in the field. My last chance to be a warrior instead of a patient. Elena felt something crack in her chest. You came here to die. I came here to live, one more time, the way I've lived for 40 years, protecting people, making shots that matter, standing between evil and the warriors who fight it. He managed a weak smile. I came here to make sure my best student was ready to take over. to see if Elena Hayes had what it takes to lead the Guardian program into the next generation. Colonel, I can't. You can. You already did. Everything you did in the past 24 hours. Breaking protocol to save the SEAL team. Navigating through the storm to save me. Setting up defensive positions. Coordinating fires. Leading from the front. Bull's eyes were bright despite his exhaustion. Your father would have done exactly the same things. He'd be so proud of who you became. The helicopters arrived 90 minutes later, Blackhawks coming in low and fast to the valley north of the cave system. The SEAL team moved Morrison and Foster to the landing zone first, both men stable, but needing hospital care. Hawthorne and Dillon followed with the gear. Elena and Reeves carried Bull on an improvised stretcher, moving carefully over the terrain that was still treacherous from the storm. The sun was fully up now, brilliant and cold, turning the snow-covered mountains into something beautiful and deadly. At the landing zone, the pararescue jumpers took over Bull's care, loading him onto the helicopter with professional efficiency. Elena climbed in beside him, refusing to leave his side. As the helicopter lifted off, Elena watched the cave system recede below them. The place where Bull had faced his demon, where a 26-year hunt had finally ended, where an old warrior had taken his last shot in combat. Bull's hand found hers and squeezed weakly. Thank you for coming back for me in the storm, for not letting me die alone in those caves, for giving me one last chance to be the Marine I've always been. You're not dying yet, Colonel. You've still got work to do, a program to hand over, Guardians to train, a retirement ceremony to attend. Bull smiled, but they both knew the truth. The cancer was going to kill him. Maybe in 3 months, maybe in 6, but the ending was already written. Promise me something, Elena. Anything, sir. The Guardian program, everything I built, everything I sacrificed for. Don't let it die with me. Take it forward, make it better. Train the next generation of Guardians to protect warriors the way you protected that SEAL team, the way you protected me. I promise, Misham. And tell the new Guardians that the work matters, that every sacrifice, every loss, every impossible shot in the middle of nowhere, while nobody watches it all, matters. Because somewhere an American warrior goes home to their family because we were watching. Elena couldn't speak, could only nod and hold Bull's hand as the helicopter carried them toward Bagram and the beginning of goodbye. 3 months later, Elena stood at attention in the main briefing room at Fort Bragg. Dress uniform, ribbons and medals, hair pulled back in the precise bun that regulations demanded. Before her, seated in a wheelchair, but still commanding despite his frailty, sat Colonel William Mackenzie. Behind him, the commander of Special Operations Command and a 2-star general from Pentagon Oversight. To either side, 12 Guardian snipers in dress uniform. The entire operational cadre of the program Bull had built. The ceremony was classified. No press, no publicity, no official record beyond the internal documents of a program that didn't officially exist. But everyone in that room knew they were witnessing something historic. The 2-star general stepped forward with a folder of orders. Colonel Mackenzie, after 41 years of service to the Marine Corps and to this nation, you are hereby retired with full honors in the gratitude of everyone whose lives you've protected. Your establishment of the Guardian Sniper Program has directly resulted in saving 473 American lives across 8 years of operations. Your legacy will endure long after this ceremony concludes. Bull accepted the retirement certificate with hands that trembled from the cancer treatment. He'd lost 40 pounds in 3 months. His skin was gray. His eyes were still bright, but the light was fading. The general turned to Elena. Staff Sergeant Elena Hayes, you are hereby promoted to Sergeant First Class and appointed as the Commander of Guardian Operations, effective immediately. You will oversee all training, doctrine development, and operational deployment of Guardian assets worldwide. You are also appointed as the primary instructor for Advanced Guardian Operations, a new doctrine incorporating lessons learned from recent combat operations. Elena accepted the promotion orders and the new rank insignia, felt the weight of responsibility settle onto her shoulders. 41 years of Bull's experience and wisdom now passing to her. Bull gestured for her to lean close and whispered, "Make them better than I did. Teach them to adapt, to break the rules when the rules don't save lives, to be guardians in every sense of the word." I will, sir. And Elena, your father. He'd be so proud. The ceremony concluded and people began filing out. Elena stayed beside Bull's wheelchair, not ready to leave him yet. How much time do the doctors give you? 4 weeks, maybe 6. Bull looked up at her. But I got to see this, got to hand the program to someone I trust, got to know that everything I built will continue. That's more than most dying men get. Elena had trained herself for 6 years to be professional, detached, emotionally controlled. But in that moment, watching the man who'd saved her, trained her, given her purpose, slowly dying in a wheelchair, her control finally broke. I don't know how to do this without you. You already know everything I can teach you. Now you just have to trust yourself the way I trust you. 6 weeks later, Colonel William Mackenzie died in his sleep at Walter Reed Medical Center. No pain, no struggle, just a warrior finally allowed to rest after 4 decades of constant vigilance. Elena was there at the end, holding his hand, making sure he didn't die alone, the way so many of the men he'd trained had died alone. His last words were about the 8 Marines from Chechnya, about her father, about all the warriors he'd protected and the ones he'd failed to save. Tell them I tried. Tell them it mattered. Tell them the Guardians are still watching. I will, Colonel, I promise. The funeral was at Arlington National Cemetery with full military honors. 21-gun salute, flag folded and presented to the surviving family, taps played by a Marine bugler. Elena stood at attention in her dress uniform, surrounded by the 12 Guardians Bull had trained. They'd come from active operations around the world to say goodbye to the man who'd created them. After the ceremony, Elena walked through Arlington to another grave. Marine Captain Thomas Hayes, her father, the man Bull had commanded and failed to save 21 years ago. She knelt at the headstone and placed 2 items there: Bull's retirement certificate and her father's dog tags, the ones Bull had carried for 2 decades. Dad, Colonel Mackenzie, is gone. He spent 21 years trying to make up for losing you. Spent his life building something that would protect other fathers, other warriors, other good men doing dangerous work. She touched the cold stone. He succeeded. The Guardian program saved 473 lives, and he trained me, made me into someone who can continue his work, your work. She stood and saluted both graves. Father and mentor, both gone, both living on through everything she'd become. Walking back through Arlington, Elena activated her secure phone. 12 messages from Guardian operations worldwide. New missions, new teams needing protection, new warriors who would never know someone was watching over them from the shadows. She began reviewing the operational briefings, already planning deployments and support packages. The work continued. The mission endured, because somewhere an American warrior was walking into danger, and somewhere a Guardian was watching, making impossible shots, taking impossible risks, doing impossible things. The wolf might die, but the pack remembered what it taught, and the hunt continued. 6 months after Bull's death, Elena stood in front of a new class of Guardian candidates. 12 shooters who'd passed the initial selection, who'd proven they had the technical skills and the psychological strength for extended solo operations. She looked at their faces, young, determined, not yet understanding what they were signing up for. The loneliness, the isolation, the weight of knowing that lives depended on shots they'd make when nobody was watching. My name is Sergeant First Class Elena Hayes. I'm the commander of Guardian Operations. Colonel William Mackenzie trained me 6 years ago in this same facility. Before he died, he gave me one mission: teach the next generation of Guardians to be better than he was, better than I am. She paused, letting them absorb that. You're here because you can shoot, because you scored in the top percentile on marksmanship tests, because you have technical skills that separate you from 99% of snipers in the world. Well, she looked each of them in the eye. But that's not what makes a Guardian. What makes a Guardian is the willingness to spend days, weeks, months operating completely alone, watching over warriors who will never know your name, taking shots that nobody will ever recognize, and doing it because the work matters more than the recognition. One of the candidates, a young woman named Sarah, raised her hand. Ma'am, is it true you broke Guardian doctrine in Afghanistan, that you closed distance and engaged in direct combat? Elena smiled slightly. Bull would have appreciated the question. Yes, the tactical situation required adaptation from standard protocols. A SEAL team was going to die if I maintained doctrinal separation. So I adapted. She paused. But understand something. I only broke doctrine because I'd mastered it first. You can't improvise effectively until you've perfected the fundamentals. Colonel Mackenzie taught me that. Spent 6 years drilling it into me before I was ready to adapt. She activated the projector and brought up the first technical lesson. But before she began teaching, she shared one more thing. My father was a Marine, died in Iraq in 2004. Sniper ambush. He never saw it coming. Never had a chance to fight back. Just doing his job one moment and gone the next. She looked at the candidates. I became a guardian so that doesn't happen to other families. So that other 16-year-old kids don't lose their parents to enemies they never saw. That's been my mission for 6 years. It'll be my mission until the day I die. She clicked to the first slide. Now let's talk about long-range ballistics in high-altitude environments. Because if you're going to protect warriors, you need to be able to make shots that other people think are impossible. The training continued for 6 months. Elena pushed the candidates harder than Bull had pushed her because she knew what was coming, knew what the job demanded, knew that anywhere she cut corners, anywhere she let them slide would cost lives down the road. 3 candidates washed out in the first month, 2 more in the second. By graduation, 7 remained. 7 new guardians ready to take their place in the shadows. At the graduation ceremony, Elena presented each of them with their guardian insignia, a small pin that would never be worn in public, that would sit in a drawer or locker as a private reminder of what they'd become. To Sarah, the young woman who'd asked about Afghanistan, Elena said something Bull had once told her. The wolf doesn't announce itself to the sheep. It just does what wolves do when sheep need protecting. Sometimes from distant hills, sometimes through storms, sometimes beside them in the fight. Your job is to be that wolf, to protect without being seen, to sacrifice without being recognized. Can you do that? Sarah nodded, understanding finally settling into her eyes. Yes, ma'am, I can. Then go be a guardian. Make Colonel Mackenzie proud. Make me proud. But most importantly, make sure American warriors come home to their families. 2 years after Bull's death, Commander Marcus Reeves led a SEAL element through Arctic conditions in northern Alaska. The operation was going smoothly until his team started taking sniper fire from unknown positions. Reeves keyed his radio, calling for any Guardian assets in the area. A female voice came back, young but confident. SEAL Actual Guardian 12. I have eyes on your position in the hostile force. 2 snipers bearing 320 and 045 from your location. Engaging now. 2 shots cracked across the frozen landscape. The hostile fire stopped. Threats neutralized. SEAL Actual. You're clear to continue your movement. Reeves smiled despite the tactical situation. Guardian 12 is your Commander Hayes. Affirmative Actual. She trained me. Colonel Mackenzie trained her. Tell her Reeves sends his regards, and thank you for watching over us. That's the job, Actual. Move safe. The transmission ended and Reeves led his team forward, knowing that somewhere in the Arctic darkness, a Guardian was watching. One of the 7 Elena had trained. Who would train others? Who would pass on Bull's legacy to the next generation and the next? The wolf didn't announce itself to the sheep. It just did what wolves do when sheep need protecting. And in the shadows in the mountains, in the frozen wastes and scorching deserts, the Guardians continued their silent watch, making impossible shots, taking impossible risks, doing impossible things, because somewhere an American warrior was walking into danger, and somewhere a Guardian was making sure they walked back out alive. That was the mission. That was the legacy. That was what Bull had built and what Elena would defend until her last breath. The old wolf was gone, but the pack remembered everything he taught, and the hunt continued, always.